And the reason we didn't have any live streams last week was because I was having my right shoulder repaired by Dr. Kevin Paley. He did an awesome job. Hopefully I didn't screw it up the other day. And here we are. So, few things, housekeeping things. First, last week the Montgomery County Democratic Party did their reorganization meeting. As usual, it was a total cluster and very contentious, very divided meeting. And I was there on painkillers, and they did a Zoom video. It should be online. I don't know if I'm going to post what I have online because I was having some technical problems and I was out of it. But the short order of it is both candidates for chair got up and didn't say a damn thing about what they were going to do for the party. Jocelyn came a little closer than Muhammad, and then the party loyalists steamrolled Jocelyn's forces, and Muhammad is the new party chair. I went up and talked to him afterwards, thought maybe he should have a conversation with the Democratic candidate for his congressional district, and he said we'd have a meeting. We'll wait and see how long that takes. A guy named Bill DeMora, the secretary of the Ohio Democratic Party, was there. Talked to him. Didn't hear anything from him about why I'm not on the website or why they're not contacting me, and I called him back and he was getting on a plane. He has not called me back either, and I've reached out to him before. Still haven't heard from the DCCC. It's kind of funny. You'd think Democrats want to get Democrats elected, but maybe not, because it's all about which Democrats get elected. So far, it's telling me that we don't have anybody viewing this live. I could be wrong. But if you are, please pipe in and just say hi, okay? Because that's the part of this whole experiment, is building a connection with a live community and answering questions. Second event happened over the weekend. I took the free white flyer, the flyer, down to Courthouse Square for the March for Our Lives rally run by DIFA and the March for Our Lives people. And I got to speak. Unfortunately, because I was told I was going to be up in 4 speakers and then they went on and on and on with other people, my batteries on one camera ran out and right in the middle of my speech, and I'll have to patch things together with other people's tapes. But of course, I got in trouble with foot and mouth disease when I quoted Shakespeare saying first we should kill all the lawyers. And back in Shakespeare's time, he didn't need an AR-15 to do it. Problem I have with lawyers is instead of going into the military, a lot of people just become lawyers and become your congressman. And Mike Turner is one of those. I, on the other hand, went in the military. So what we're going to talk today about is the cost of mass incarceration. And in the show notes, I talked about something that happened with me with former Governor Bob Taft, where we were asked to be evaluators of some public school students. Actually, it's a charter school, evaluating their presentations. And I got up and started asking questions of all the students there. And first one is, how many of you have an immediate family member that is currently incarcerated? Half the hands went up. Taft looked like he was seeing something from another planet. I said, how many of you have extended family? Now we're up to 75%. The difference is if you were in Oakwood and you had a family member in jail or in prison, and yes, there is a difference, nobody would raise their hands. They'd be embarrassed. In Dayton, it's pretty common. So, what is the cost of mass incarceration in this country? It's an unbelievable number. And I quoted a PBS article in the show notes, 82 million direct, up to 187 million indirect, 82 billion, 182 billion. It's a huge number. And the reality is, you talk to any local sheriff running a jail, he'll tell you at least 25% of his people should be in a mental health facility. But since we don't have health care for all, we don't believe in mental health care as part of insurance programs, we don't even have the facilities or the beds to put these people in anymore. We shut down a lot of the mental health institutions under Reagan back in the 80s. So you got that contingent. And how is that relevant to me right now? Well, some of you know that I take care of a veteran who got kicked out of the Air Force Academy as a senior and bounced around between jail, mental health facilities for 20 years with no benefits. When I was asked to become his POA, he was homeless, carless, phoneless, and incarcerated at Summit Correctional down in Cincinnati. And I gotta tell you, that's pretty much the norm. You go to jail, you become homeless. You lose your car, you lose your phone, your credit goes to crap. Guess what? If you're convicted, your bank accounts get closed. Banks don't like doing business with criminals, unless, of course, they're the Wall Street kind. So, I've worked through all the process and procedures over the last 6 years, and now that veteran is owner of 2 homes, a car, a phone. He's got full benefits from the VA, Social Security. He's doing well. However, his older brother, who is also mentally ill, started on a spree last fall and lost his driver's license in one of his early arrests, and then later got in a bunch more trouble, and was incarcerated in Delaware County in December. Needless to say, his house went into foreclosure. It's really hard for somebody who's in jail to make their house payments or even access things like their bank accounts to make payments or set it up. Unless it was all automated and they're loaded, you know, they're screwed. He was lucky. He had a retirement account, and I was made POA 32 days ago. It was a lot of work just getting the POA into place while he was locked up. And then opening a bank account was almost impossible because he didn't have a government ID. They'd taken away his driver's license. He can't go get one because he's in jail. And it took me better part of 3 weeks before I worked out a deal with Right Pac Credit Union to open an account by going all the way to the top. The president of Right Pac Credit Union can't say enough about how amazing he is and how much help he was in this. And he knows what I've been doing with the other veteran, and they took a little tweaking and we got that set up. But I had to go to Fidelity a couple times. I had to go show the POA. I had to do all kinds of things to get this money. And then I had to negotiate with the foreclosure to buy the house back. Then I had to go and change the locks on the doors. A couple days later, some people who had said they had permission to be there tried to break in and got caught. They had warrants out for their arrest. The house had been trashed, ransacked. Had to take everything that was savable, put it in storage, clean the house, recarpet the whole house, repaint the house, put it on the market where it is now on the market in Westerville, and hopefully we can close within 30 days so I will be able to pay back the IRA in time. In the meantime, trying to sort through all the other issues that have been created. It's insane. But I want to talk a little bit about expenses of all this. Obviously, his brother's mentally ill. He's been taken from the jail and sent over to Summit Behavioral in Columbus and another one several times. They're medicating him. They are not actually treating his illness, but he is in jail. And that costs us a lot of money. And what's even more disgusting is there's a whole kickback system to sheriffs for the commissary, for the phone calls, all those things that suck money out of the poorest families in America who are concerned with their loved ones who are oftentimes in jail because they couldn't afford bail and they haven't been convicted of anything. And the reality is that while you are in pretrial detention, which has grown longer and longer because they've worked out deals and it takes longer and everything. But what ends up happening, even if you are released, your credit's gone to hell and your employability has gone to hell. Pretrial detention costs $13.6 billion each year. That's just in the cost to local governments. That's an awful lot of money because our courts can't get things going fast enough because we're paying to keep people in jail awaiting trial. When you get to the costs of housing youth offenders, it gets even crazier. It costs $588 a day for the secure confinement of a young person. That's $214,620 per year. That is a lot of money. That's enough to pay for college for 4 years. That's more than enough to pay for housing for people, for a whole family, and food, and everything else. That's just to lock up one child. Who should we have in jail? Who should be in prison? Which children should be in prison? Now, some of you know that I've been friends with a guy named Brian Higgins for a long time, who was one of the men indicted in the, quote, culture of corruption indictment in Dayton, where only black men were indicted for crimes against the community by the FBI with their bogus confidential informant shell corporation set up to entrap public officials. Brian was charged and spent 68 days in jail, in prison actually, being evaluated for his mental health just before he stood trial. And when he was finally found guilty, he was taken directly to prison, right there. They put handcuffs on him because somehow this honorably discharged military veteran, all of a sudden, who's been working and showing up with an ankle bracelet, which, by the way, he also has to pay for, was somehow a threat to society. And he was whisked away for 3 years, where we're going to pay out the yin-yang to lock him up because he defrauded an insurance company of a settlement. That's what they told the jury. They left out the part about he was partners with the confidential informant who was flipped on him, and in partners with the public officials, and they were going to steal us blind for a sham corporation, a corporation they were going to set up to get demolition contracts in the city of Dayton and get that federal money. So we have to ask and wonder, one, if it was just for insurance fraud, that's a civil case. And the only people that were harmed by it were the insurance company and the mortgage company. And the mortgage company, by the way, is now called Mr. Cooper, doing business as Mr. Cooper, because what they were formerly gotten sued so many times and found guilty of so many improprieties that they had to change the business's name. So we're going to pay for Mr. Higgins to be in jail for 3 years. Joey Williams, who accepted a bribe while being a public official, he didn't get charged right away and arrested in office and thrown out. No, he got to run for office again with an agreement that he would step down if he won, which he did win, and then he stepped down. So they ran a Manchurian candidate. He only did 3 months in prison, and now is running a restaurant downtown. Now let's talk about jobs for people when they get out. So some of you may know, may not know, that I've been a big brother to an inner city youth since he was 10. He is now 45. He's been to prison twice, both times for basically being black in Greene County. Neither of those charges would ever have stood up in court if it had been anywhere other than Greene County. He's been in jail multiple other times for bunches of minor things. And to tell you the truth, again, we have a mental health issue more than anything. So what kind of jobs can he get? This is a kid who is super smart in some ways. And now he was a truck driver. That's what he ended up being, until one day he got a DUI, lost his ability to work, lost his ability to drive so he could drive to work, then got to put an interlock on his car, which has permanently damaged the ignition, by the way, so now the car can't be started and moved. And he's still trying to get his CDL back, but trying to do all that after being basically stopped from the job, the only job he had that made real money, for over 2.5 years. There are other jobs that you just can't even apply for, things that he can't do because he's been in prison. We end up with people going to prison again because they were in prison. We have to figure out a better way to rehabilitate people and keep them participating in society. Prisons are really places for dangerous, violent people who can't be let out on the streets because they will end up doing things like, well, I don't know, going into a school with an AR-15 and shooting children. That wasn't a well-regulated militia that walked into the school or went out to the shopping mall, the grocery store in Buffalo. So, again, we need to figure out what we're putting people in prison for, in jail for, what it costs us, and look at the cost benefit. Because we incarcerate more people than any industrialized nation, and it's a majority of them are poor or minorities. And there's a reason for that. We have the best justice system money can buy. So getting back to the whole, who's this system really for? Is it for the lawyers? Is it for the judges? Is it for them, because the sheriffs, because there's kickbacks involved and money involved? Who are we helping by locking people up? Are we really making this country safer? I surely don't believe that's true when we have over 40,000 gun deaths in this country. How is that happening? That's 40,000 people a year dying of gunshot wounds. That's more than we lost in Iraq in 20 years of war. In a single year. Boom. We saw during COVID, we could lock the whole country down. And we couldn't even do that right. And we had 1 million people die. And we spent a lot of money. And we kept the economy going. And you know who got rich? The rich. The stock market's tanking today. Who's that affect? Well, some rich people are saying, oh, well, I lost a bit off my portfolio. But they keep jacking interest rates up, so every one of you has to pay more for your credit cards, has to pay more for revolving credit, have to pay more for your home. If there's one thing that we should be subsidizing, it's reasonably priced homes and home ownership. It doesn't help us to have homeless people. That costs us even more. Anyways, I've been talking for a while. I see I have one viewer on there right now. Would you like to tap in and say hello and tell me who you are, or say hi, or do you have a question? When I've been off for a week, this is what happens. I guess you guys get out of the habit of tuning in at 4. I will be back every day this week at 4. The only exception might be Wednesday when I have a doctor's appointment at 2:50. I should be able to be back by then in time for 4 o'clock. I'm not seeing anybody tap in with any questions or saying hi, so I'm David Esrati. I'm running for Congress, Ohio 10. Mike Turner's been in there for 20 years. You can make a donation to me starting at $3. The minimum you can donate to Mikey is 500 smackers. So, if nothing else, you can buy a politician for less right here at electisrati.com/donate. Money is what makes it happen, unfortunately. I ran a big ad in the Dayton Daily News yesterday talking about gun control. It should lead you to the page electisrati.com/gun control, where you can see some amazing examples of advertising, things done by people in my business to try to respond to the gun safety issues in this country. And you can read my proposals for how we're going to solve gun control in the United States as a true constitutionalist. Thank you for watching. I'll be back here tomorrow. I love to see questions, comments. If you didn't want to do it while we're live, feel free to add comments down below, and we will respond tomorrow. Thank you very much for watching.
you.